Welcome to Fourpure at 4, Friday the 14th of July edition. Today, 2017. Today we talk to John, Head Brewer John, just John, the anatomy of a head brewer. We did actually have something pre-prepared. It was with Dave
Seymour from Brew by Numbers. Great guy.
But being pre-prepared, sort of earlier in the week, technology has failed us this afternoon. So we'll learn more about Dave next week, which will be nice. And this afternoon, we learn more about John. Shall I bring these over? There we go. Oh, what a week.
Yeah, it's been a crazy week.
It has been a crazy
very
week.
Busy. Very busy. It's been fun.
It has.
Lots of stuff going on.
Absolutely. This week we canned and hand labelled 6,000 cans, 250 cases of a collaboration beer that we did with Byron. So that's kind of the first stuff we'll talk about that. But
yeah,
that was like true craft.
That was awesome. We had basically people from all over the company and other friends had come by and help us out. It was basically like 2 days of work, people manually taking the cans, applying the labels, boxing them, and it was actually really nice because we got to have people from the office hanging out with brewers, hanging out with people in logistics, hanging out with salespeople. So it was a really fun kind of atmosphere. We ordered pizza for lunch.
That's making it sound a lot bigger than we really are. Normally, we never talk to each other. Everyone kind of.
But if you work in logistics and you're out on the road delivering beer to our local accounts, and if you're a brewer, you're on the brew floor, and so it's we get together all the time, but we don't often get to spend like an entire working day together.
This is very true.
Yeah, so that was really nice, and it
was good atmosphere. There's some good music playing down in the tap room.
Yeah. We brewed. We had a couple of visitors. We mentioned Dave from Brew by Numbers. We also had Derek Prentice from Wimbledon come over, and we brewed a beer together, the three of us. So Fourpure, Brew by Numbers, and Wimbledon Brewery collaboration for London Beer City. Which should be really good. It's going to be like a 4.5% pale ale with we've got hops from New Zealand and from Australia in there. So we've got Waiheke, we've got New Zealand Cascade, we've got Motueka, Galaxy, and Nelson Sauvin. I should mention actually that our friends at Fuller's in Chiswick, they donated the Nelson Sauvin because none of the three of us breweries could get any, and that was really nice of them.
That is cool.
But that was in the spirit of collaboration.
There we go.
That should be a love. So Waiheke has a really nice sort of stone fruit character and a kind of nice peachy character, which will complement the tropical flavors from the Galaxy. And New Zealand Cascade is very, very intense. It's genetically obviously really similar to the American Cascade, but the growing conditions in New Zealand are really different. So the hop is much more tropical as well than the sort of regular American Cascade. So that should be out in about 2 weeks or so. So we just dry hop that for the first time today. We're going to dry hop it again next week. It's a great thing to collaborate with guys like that because we all brought stuff to the table and we you come up with a different recipe than either one of us three would on their own individually.
Sort of feels like every week when we come in and sit down, there's something new to talk about. New beer, we'll just can something new, we'll just keg something new, which is always quite nice. So
the new Shapeshifter cans came out this week.
That's true. Rob's going to run off and find one of those for us, aren't you, Rob? That'd be very, very
yeah, there's a third person in this room right now.
There's downstairs, so I made some time.
Okay, that's all right. We've got nothing but time on our hands, unless there's one in there. No. So while Rob's looking for one of those cans, which we can show everybody, this is just John, the anatomy of a head brewer. So do you mind if we just have a little bit of a chat about you, John? Because I mean, obviously that was the idea of talking to Dave this week, was finding out a little bit. We like to talk to our friends when they come in and brew with us, and when we're overseas or kind of away from home, even if it's domestically and we're up at other breweries or visiting customers, we always like to have a bit of a chat about them, find out why they got into the industry and what makes them tick. And I don't think we've ever really done that with you. And you're a semi-important person around the brewery. occasionally
doesn't feel like that.
So, and also, most importantly, you've been with the brewery since day one. Mm-hmm. So, other than sort of, I guess, Dan and Tom and Soph, I guess, and Rob have been here from pretty early on.
Neil and Emily,
of course.
Yeah.
And then, a few shadow figures who aren't necessarily here day to day, but you were very early on in the piece in helping planning and getting the brewery off the ground, I guess. So, to get started, how did you get started at Fourpure?
Well, I was at my previous employer in Greenwich, and I had a fun and interesting job there. But I felt like the time was right for me to look out for a new opportunity. So one day I got home and I decided to take a look on a few websites to see if there were any interesting brewing jobs out there, maybe somewhere smaller where I could have a more senior role, where I could contribute. And I saw that there was this startup, and I was a little bit more skeptical about working for a startup, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because there's always a lot more risk associated with that, because you have no idea. But it was also, this was sort of early, mid 2013. So we were just sort of at the cusp of this big explosion, or it was starting to happen, but sort of in slow motion at that point still. Mm-hmm. And I saw this job listing for head brewer position at a startup called Fourpure. I was very interested, so I shot a quick email over to Dan, who posted the job listing, and then he replied and encouraged me to apply for the job. So I just updated my CV. I hadn't even had time to do that because it was only earlier in the day that I decided to start looking. I sent him my CV. I think he called me the next day. Later that day, I think it was, we met up for a couple of beers. We met at the pub near his house where he was living at the time. I think we ended up having 3 or 4 beers, and we talked about how we really wanted to can our beer. We were both really excited about that. No one was canning their beer yet at the time. We talked about everything, and it was we got along really well. Mm-hmm. And I left with a really good feeling.
Yeah.
And I think it was later that evening he offered me the job. So within 24 hours of me deciding that I wanted to look for something new. And I think we really hit it off. And then a few weeks later I met.
Did that feel like it set the tone, considering almost 4 years in now? Or let's face it, things pretty much happen in 24 hours still. Today.
Yeah, we're fast moving company. We're.
Thank you, sir. Look, well done. Yeah, we might tuck that one behind there just in case. Make a decision as well. Yeah, we will. All right.
Yeah, and but it's true. Like it's a great thing though, actually, that we move as quickly as we do, because it's I think been a large part of our success that we don't dither around and hem and haw about what we should do. We have a serious discussion. We weigh the options, and then we move on.
Allows us to be both proactive and reactive, I think, doesn't it? I mean, it's a fast-moving industry, it's a fast-growing industry. I think if you drag your feet too long in anything, or if you're not sort of looking 2 steps ahead and sort of reacting 1 step ahead, you're probably missing a trick from time to time. I feel like Parkinson's. I feel like I should get my own cutaway while I'm listening to you. So I mean, that was the early days, and kind of as we're saying, the pace hasn't really dropped off since then. But
at the time, I mean, when on my first day at work was in Dan's kitchen, because we didn't have a site. Okay. So we were trying to secure a site.
And where we're sat today is the original Fourpure site. We've sort of grown within the estate, but we have stayed true to South London and Bermondsey, and intend to continue to do so, for as long as we possibly can, until we get priced out of London. But in the meantime, obviously we're growing quite well within this small area. So
yeah, and so at the time there were decisions that we needed to make. We had to. So Dan had bought a brew house already, was one of the first things that I asked him during the interview was, so do you have a brew house, and or what kind of brew house are you planning on getting? And he was like, already bought one. And I was like, oh. So we bought the brew house from Purity, and then we went up there a few times, spent a lot of time taking notes, taking pictures, working with the guys who were brewing there. There's a brewer called Paul who was there, who actually worked for us briefly. Met Flo up there too, great guy, he's the head brewer there. We had to find a site, we had to sort of plan the layout, figure out how many tanks we were getting, what design considerations we wanted for those tanks. We had to decide what kind of beers we wanted to brew.
There's a lot that goes into it, right? You can't just go, I want to be a craft brewer tomorrow, quit my... Yeah. I'm a great designer, I can come up with some cool can designs, I'm going to go brew tomorrow and let's go sort of thing. There's a lot that goes into it, really.
Yeah. But in that very first conversation that we had, we spent maybe half the conversation talking about canning, about how we thought that was... And that was the kind of thing that I found really exciting, because I knew that was going to be this next wave to hit craft beer, and the fact that he understood that early on really excited me, coming from a more conservative brewery where I was working before.
And I guess talking about the style of beers that we do, being a keg-only producer, sort of doing American hops with American-inspired beers, there's a lot of heritage, a lot of tradition in UK brewing, and I think, looking at the styles of beers we put out consistently over the last 4 years and thinking ahead that far at the time, I guess there probably wasn't a lot of breweries doing this style of beer or doing keg only, and we see breweries, sort of that have been straddling cask and keg, or have been sort of cask producers moving into, have you brewed for a cask brewer before yourself?
No, I have some experience of washing and filling casks in a really sort of informal sense, I guess. But it's
so laser focus really on what we do.
If that was the vision for Dan and Tom, then which it wasn't, then I wouldn't have been the right brewer for the job for sure.
All right. And what sort of what's been the progression since day one in terms of your role in the brewery? And I know it's a very broad, very big question, but
I mean, so my personal and professional growth and the growth of the company have both been, I think, immense since we started. When I started, I was the only brewer. Now we're a team of 7 or 8, and I don't do that much brewing anymore. I've brewed a few times this month, a couple of times last month, but before that I went several months without brewing at all. My role is much more, I'm the line manager for the brew team. I'm at the senior level, along with you and Rob and a few other people, where we make the decisions for how we're going to guide the business forward. I do a lot of the production planning, and we've got expansion projects and things like that.
Yes.
We've got recipe design stuff. There's going out and doing events. There's boring things like
nothing boring.
Ordering this, ordering that. Relationships with suppliers, and there's a lot of stuff. And when we started, I was basically brewing and washing tanks I was doing all the brewing jobs, the brewery floor operational jobs, by myself, and then brought on a couple of guys to help out, and Max and Rob. I don't know if you've heard of them. You knew Max and Rob.
I did. Yeah.
Max and Rob, good guys. Early days. And then over time, things just continue to grow and grow and grow, and you almost kind of lose track of it. But it's, every once in a while, you sort of stop and think and look back, and it's crazy how far we've come.
It's incredible, isn't it? I mean, as you grow, roles tend to become slightly more granular. So as you're saying, your roles maybe not as hands-on brewing as it once was. But then the reality of maybe removing some part of that from the aspect of your role, there's probably 20 other things that have cropped up in its place that, while we kind of silo out, all this other stuff sort of fills the gap of your time and how your day's filled, and Yeah, it's incredible what we can actually achieve.
When we started, we had 3 fermenters, and now we have 19.
Yeah.
And we're getting 12 more.
Yeah.
When we started, we had 2 bright beer tanks, and now we have 9.
Yeah.
And arguably, we should have a few more. When we started, we were doing maybe a brew a week, a brew every 5 days or so. Now we're brewing 16 times a week, and we really should be brewing more than that.
Yeah, that's crazy.
If we could, we would.
Yeah.
When we started, we were doing our kegging ourselves manually. Now we're kegging on a keg filler. We're doing about 45 kegs an hour or so. When we started, we didn't have a canning line, although we were planning on getting one. We then got one that could do about 2,000 cans an hour approximately. Now we have one that can do 15,000 cans per hour, and it's fully automated.
Yeah.
And it's state of the art.
Yeah.
And when we started, we were brewing on the old Purity brew house. It's a very basic sort of system. We're still brewing on that now, but we're about to get...
Well, in terms of the mods we've done, though, over the years to that brew house, the capabilities are completely different now, I guess, than when they were day one as well.
Yeah, and we're looking at stepping up from there as well. Yeah. So there's constant progression.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And so the beers that we were brewing back then to the beers that we're brewing now, are there similarities? I know you're saying that we looked at, we wanted to be in cans, and we knew the style of beers that we wanted to brew, and we take influence, obviously, kind of our marketing platform, I guess, if you want to call it that, is inspired by adventure, but really that's more the heart and soul of the brewery, and that's Tom and Dan's story, and their adventures and their love for travel, and the inspiration they've taken from traveling and trying different beers all over the world. And that is what went into, I guess, the brews that we did from day one. And that's why we have a Pilsner and we have a Pale Ale in our Session IPA, and they've come from travels through Germany and down the west coast of the US, and Shapeshifter in the lakes of Oregon, I believe, and all those sorts of things. I mean, it was there from day one, and I guess that's still how I look back at Bin Juice, for example, Paul's beer, where or what was the recent cafe where it sort of head over to
cinnamon bun espresso.
That was it, cinnamon bun espresso, where you're off on a long weekend away, and you're down the cafe in the morning and get these, start the day with a cinnamon bun and a black coffee or something, and that inspires to go and brew a beer. I mean, that's been the heart and soul of the brewery since day one. So have you seen that follow through, and we're just brewing more beers, or obviously our ability to control quality and sort of manage beers from that perspective is obviously a lot better these days? Mm-hmm. How does it compare?
Well, I mean, when we started, again, things were a lot simpler, and we had more time for everything. We had a very clear idea of what kind of brewery we wanted to be. We wanted to be quality oriented. We wanted to be known for our consistency. We wanted to have a strong sustainability ethos. Yeah. We wanted to brew beers that were interesting but accessible. And we wanted to have plenty of room to also do experimental and interesting and boundary-pushing beers at the same time.
Yeah.
And as we grow, we're seeing increased opportunities to really focus in more narrowly on all of those different aspects. So quality-wise, we've built a great lab, and we've invested in lots of great technology, and we've got a really good brew team, and all those things are things we didn't have before. In terms of the sustainability side, we're always focusing on new projects to continue to drive that forward, to bring down our CO2 usage, our water usage, our chemical usage, to recycle more. Then the experimental sort of stuff, and the stuff, good ideas can come from anywhere. Anybody can be inspired and come up with a brilliant idea, but people who are immersed in the beer world and are thinking creatively about beer can come up with 100 good ideas in a lifetime, let's say, but a million ideas overall. You got to figure out which ones are the really good ones. Some people are better than others at coming up with an idea, but then don't understand the execution side well enough. But that's why you build a good team, and you do that collaboratively. You can have a guy who's great with ideas, and you got a guy who's great with recipes, and you got a guy who's great with execution, and then and it really is a team sport. There's no single brilliant genius behind any great product that has ever existed. I'm convinced of that. It's always something that's a collaborative process, and that's very much something that I try to stress within the brewing team as well. As we grow, we will do more and more really interesting stuff. But what pays the bills and what pays our salaries are the session IPAs and the Pilsners and the American Pales of the world and the juice boxes. But those are also amazing beers to drink.
Absolutely. I was about to say which you and the team spend.
We're always improving.
Hours and hours and hours constantly sort of discussing, refining, tweaking. The recipe remains the same, but our ability to sort of tweak and control the quality and consistently improve on those beers is outstanding. So
tweaking the amount of calcium in the mash one day, and then bringing the pitching temperature down by 0.5 degree the next day, and then extending the rest of the cold conditioning stage, or dropping the temperature down slightly further, and improvements in the engineering side in the brewery. All these things contribute.
Refine and okay.
How long do we recirculate the dry hops for? What technique do we use? All these things are things that we're always tweaking.
Okay.
Always.
Which leads to new and improved beers and different beers, and I'm going to use that as a segue to get outside of the.
Well, the fun thing about new beers is that they're an opportunity to. They're like all the lessons that we've learned over time. From all the other beers that we've had and tweaking all the other beers that we've worked on can be sort of embodied in a new beer.
Yes.
And it's a lot harder to do across your existing range because it's more sensitive to change because those beers already exist and you can't completely change everything all at once. But like when you bring out a new beer, you can put 100 lessons that you've learned and apply them all at once.
Which is incredible really because the reality of a lot of our new beers is you almost get one crack at it. It's not like we get to necessarily, sort of brew these beers time and time again and just, sort of chuck them out batch after batch and go, oh, well, we'd like to refine this, we'd like to tweak that. The reality of the situation is when we brew a beer, we have to put it out there. And so, like you say, sort of all the knowledge that we've gained over time goes into that new brew with the refinements. And what you end up with is a one-hit wonder where all of a sudden you go, right, this is what we're going to put out, this is what we know about the beer, this is what we know about the dry hopping process, this is what we know about how we actually want to package it, and everything goes into pulling something together that we then go, right, let's go, stick it in a can, get it out there, and I guess the reality is you hope that it's going to taste amazing, but I would say 999 times out of 1,000, you guys nail it, and we end up with a pretty solid beer. So, we've got a few examples of late here. Juicebox being one, Deucebox, which we talked about last week. Shapeshifter is an absolute stalwart, and in my personal opinion, one of the better beers out there on the market.
I think I would say that's maybe my favorite of our core beers.
So we've just, you're talking about it being a team effort and us constantly sort of talking about refining and tweaking. It's not just to do with the recipes that we do. We're always talking about how we might make the beer more interesting in the marketplace or more appealing to people. It's a tough marketplace. There's 1,800 now. I mean, they keep ticking over breweries in the UK. It's the most saturated brewing market in the world. And people are going to walk. We're getting more and more sort of independent off trade. There's lots of craft beer bars popping up all over the place. It's getting more cluttered and more competitive. And I guess the reality is, your beer can't just taste great. I mean, how do people actually decide which beer they're going to drink and how do they take it off the shelf? So, what we do is we constantly look at things like our font badges for our draft. We've got our new in-house design capability, and Dan does an incredible job of making the beer kind of look appealing and look cool, which is something unfortunately we have to work on. And not unfortunately, but it's a reality of it's part of what we are as a business.
Man, but beer also tastes better when it's drunk out of a cool looking can.
Doesn't it? It does. No, it really does. So we've recently tweaked Shapeshifter,
and it's art. It's part of the it's like a great record isn't just like the amazing tunes. It's also all the artwork and
absolutely.
It's the whole thing.
It's the story.
It's the feel of the thing.
Yeah.
It's the story. It does matter.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And so obviously, because that's my part of business. But yeah, so leads us to Shapeshifter New Can. So we haven't really worked too hard on this one, other than we just wanted to get it down to a single panel, so that all the information's there on the front, so that people kind of know what it is they're getting themselves into, who does it. So us, Fourpure. We managed to retain the name Shapeshifter. It was in contention for a little while, but it's ours, which is very exciting. And that's what the can looks like there. So first look, they'll be out in market in a week. So we actually haven't had Shapeshifter in can for a wee while. We sort of ran down the stock to get the new cans into market. So if you're a Shapeshifter fan, get excited. That will be out there from next week, hopefully.
Yeah, and that we were canning that yesterday.
So it's super
fresh. And
it's not 2 minutes old like we got last week with the Deuce Box, so I'm not going to bother cracking that one.
Unfortunately, it's 22 hours old.
And then
old by our standards.
One more beer which I believe we're allowed to talk about if we're not really sorry, Katie and team at Byron, but we're going to talk about it anyway.
Yeah, I don't know if we're allowed to, but that's not my thing. So.
Is we've just done a collaboration beer with Byron, which is a dry hop pilsner, so a take on our pilsner.
Yeah, so our pilsner is like a really good example of a lager with just a lot of flavor. So we use 4 different hops. We make sure to keep it drinkable. There's a lot of that really nice noble hop flavor in that beer.
Yeah.
And what we decided to do with this, in this case, and that makes it, so the dry, crisp, refreshing, sort of, but hop-forward character of that beer makes it work really well with a beautiful, juicy Byron burger, right?
Yeah.
So we thought, let's how can we sort of make it more interesting, and how can we make it work even better? And so we thought if we intensify the hop character further, and we also make the hop character more sort of citrus oriented, and therefore a little bit more exciting, but still sort of true to style, that would be the best way to do that. So we dry hopped it quite heavily, actually. It's similar levels to what we do with like our session IPA, with 2 varieties, so Mandarina Bavaria, German variety, really nice, and sort of a good bridge between the noble hops that are sort of in the original Pilsner recipe and the sort of dry hop character that we're going for, and then Centennial, which is like one step up from Mandarina Bavaria in terms of the citrus kind of character. Okay. Centennial has got this lovely kind of like lemon rind, kind of Fruit Loop kind of character to it, and so it's basically a really nice, refreshing lager, but with a nice.
Couple of questions. John on Facebook Live would like to see a close-up of the Shapeshifter can, if you can
certainly
just give us a close-in for John Rollins.
I'm going to go past Periscope on the way through slowly.
Past Periscope.
And then there we go. That's for you, John. Yeah. So it's a handsome can. So
can we just point out as well, the West Coast IPA is quite illustrated on the front now.
Yes.
People were asking what a Shapeshifter was, but it does now tell you. Okay, John? And just quickly flipping over to Sophie. Sophie would like to know how crisp and refreshing is the lager.
Is that a Sophie Thompson?
That's Sophie Thompson from Bethnal Green. Would like to know how crisp and refreshing exactly is it.
Thanks for the question, Sophie Thompson from Bethnal Green. Do you want to answer that one?
I have to say, like, full disclosure, I know Sophie Thompson from Bethnal Green, and I refuse to answer any of her questions.
in
Thanks,
case,
guys.
is it a leading question? Is it? All right.
I think we've satisfied John. The question's still there. But anyway.
Oh, okay. Thanks, John.
We'll roll it back past the camera if he's been for a tea break.
And then this was the one we were just talking about. Then Zen, Zen being 10 in German, as it's Byron's 10th birthday, and we went for kind of the Zen theme in that, you know, it's summer and we're pretty chilled, and so therefore there's like a little lass doing some meditation there on the side on the rocks, and
Really?
yeah, check it out. It's a beautiful can.
John says
yoga.
thanks, by the way, guys.
Yoga.
You got it, John. No worries. He's actually not even sat in the office here, so someone other than the people sat in the office are watching us. That's
We've
exciting.
peaked at about 15 viewers between the two, so
right.
that's not bad. Considering it's Friday at 4 o'clock.
Yeah, I think we're kind of rambling now. Should we let these people go and enjoy their afternoons?
Yeah, this is pretty much empty now, so.
Oh, okay. I'm going to hurry up. All right, that was a long one today. Thanks, John. The Anatomy of a Head Brewer.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers,
Happy
guys.
Friday. Cheers, guys.
Have a good week.